individual energy patterns, genetic and occult. Perhaps even a gene has its own guardian spirit that rules that role, almost as the essence of a god. All genes together creating an energy pattern which is a body. Entities could be rogue energy patterns entering or corrupting the energy field of the body.
Again, you're dividing the matter into different smaller aspects. What are genes? Again, everything is atoms. So go from there. So everything is just a particle. But then particle which is mixed with certain intention, information during the birth, during the conception. So all of these have impact, but do not empower one over the other. The particle is just a particle. Everything consists of particles, but particles are organized into streams. What organizes them into streams? The same atoms comprise your body, the body of the tree, everything else. But why you appear as you and the tree appears as tree? Because there's some kind of other conscious underlining subtle aspects that creates different appearance, different function. So the spirit of the tree and the spirit of a human, what is different? A lot, right? And that is what defines what is called individuation, what makes the clusters of atoms and particles appear as this or as that. And these are the vibrational waves. So the subtle essence, the energy essence, has information within it. You're looking again at the body. Forget about the body. The body is just a representative or the kind of a replica of that which is in the subtle, in the energy. So that energy carries vibration information. And so because of that image, or because of that information, there is a certain physical image, but there is a subtle image as well. So the more we refine, the more we transform the physical, because we're letting go. So at this point of time, in this current evolutionary stage, you may say, the body has, we're at the level of, we're devolved. And so what does it mean? We acquired a lot of corruption. Corruption in this sense doesn't mean good or bad. It's something that, it means that we've just dived into the matter and dispersed ourselves within the matter. And when our consciousness wants evolution, it means it wants to collect itself back to the essence, or bring ourselves back to the natural flow. So the whole purpose is to return ourselves to the natural flow, to bring ourselves to natural flow, and to understand what brought us out of the natural flow first. So these tendencies, these currents outwards, it brought us out of the natural world and attached us to it, because we confuse the sense of self with that which is of a transitory nature. So we thought that what we possess defines us, and eventually what we possessed us. This comes from a corrupt sense of self. This comes from a corrupt perception of self, where one's being is not perceived in a wholesome way, but perceived in a very limited way, where we choose to associate with someone's thoughts and emotions. For example, our parents, or we choose to associate with some ideas like social, cultural, religious, or we choose to believe that certain things are essential in our life, and we're attached to them, and we project a sense of self onto them. And so all these things, they are supported by our conscious energy. But it means that the life of these beings or these things is supported by our conscious energy, but it also drains our own being. So when we worry about other beings, about other people, we give them a part of our conscious energy which supports their living, or which disturbs, or but through disturbance or through support, it just supports their being anyways. So because a part of our consciousness goes there and attaches to that. A part of our consciousness supports our gadgets, supports the idea of our life, all our possessions. So we believe that we possess these things and they define who we are. But at the end of the day, if we awake and realize it, we'll see that we possess nothing. We simply cannot, because it's only the corrupt, limited understanding as long as we have the body, because once the body perishes, we don't possess anything. But we still have the links within our energy, a subtle body with mind, which connects us with these things. So at the end, these things, the matter possesses us, and this means we devolve more and more into the matter, or kind of dive more and more into matter and get attached there and get drained by the matter. That's why also the life expectancy went down through this cycle of devolution. The cycle of evolution means that we kind of become more and more aware of these things, and we start disconnecting from the matter and understanding it only to the degree that it's useful or functional for our everyday life. So we do not support it, and with our consciousness we're able to detach from it anytime. It's more difficult with human relationships, right? Or with human attachments, because it's more subtle. And again, through human relations, we define ourselves. So through material possessions, we define, through human relations, and through such subtle aspects like ideological or conceptual beliefs, ideas, we define, let's say we think, oh, I have a good job, so it defines me as a rich person. This kind of a definition is very subtle. It's not really tangible, but it also relates to something that you have or may have or acquire. So through these ideas, we link up with the material world, and material world possesses us. And many times people's bodies are drained through these links without people realizing it. And so let's say they lose their health in pursuit of some ideas, or they fight for some ideologies, or they fight for some relationships and eventually lose their health. And health means their physical vitality, first of all, and balance. And so what happens to them, let's say they perish, the body's lost. So now all that which they were fighting for in their limited context of their limited body is lost. But actually it's not lost, because their subtle being still vibrates there. And that's why we have this phenomenon, which is like many souls have difficulty to transcend further and return to the cycle of birth and death, because they simply are too attached. And so they may have difficulty to really leave this sort of realm. Even though they're in a subtle level, they can still perceive and observe these whatever aspects they were attached to. And so they start interfering, and it's relevant in this day and age we're living in. And so they start interfering with the lives of the living beings through these links, through these feelings of it's mine, through possessive attitude. But it is not that the possessive attitude is because that thing possessed them from within. So they have a link, and they make those relationships, objects, still relevant for them. And so without being able to let it go, they continue their disembodied status. So here, for instance, just as an example. Sometimes people are possessed by someone else's ideas and haunted. For example, some political ideas, religious ideas, and they start fighting and creating movements or doing some kind of negative activities because they justify it from within. So they do not have that idea. That idea, you may say, possess them. And now it's like an entity because they propel this with their thoughts and emotions continuously. So it becomes like a living being. It becomes like, what are the movements? Movements are, some ideas which are so supported by thoughts and emotions that they become almost like a demonic or whatever entity, which are so powerful and acquire the collective will, which is able to create a lot of disruption and create all kinds of changes and conflicts, arise wars, and cause lots of chaos and harm, right? On a material level, so on the physical level. So many times people who have weak will or very victimized, they look for these kind of things that can possess them, but they do it subtly, subconsciously, because they have a gap, they have a, something that has to be filled in. And so they look for things, they look for pseudo-spirituality, something that can give them a sense of power. And eventually they become victims of their own false pursuits. So instead of really turning within and cultivating own power, they look for this power outwards. And they usually become either victims of occultists or magicians who manipulate them, because they have this distortion, because they have this weakness, they have this limited desire to be powerful through something external. So they want to learn some techniques. They think that some techniques will give them power. Some objects, statues, power objects will give them power. Power object become a powerful object because someone's consciousness empowers it. If one doesn't understand this, one becomes a victim of the world. And if one worships something outwards, outside of self, one supports that idea and takes that power or takes my mental power, conscious power, and gives it outwards instead of cultivating own strength, confidence, and balanced natural being. So we look at religions, ideologies. So they are supported by people with similar distortions, which are weak at the core and which need something from outside because they are too weak to look within and remove the root causes of those weaknesses and distortions. And so for them, it's easier to project one's own power outwards than to cultivate it within. Because cultivation within means taking responsibility for one's own life and changing the victimized perspective into responsible perspective. That I'm responsible for my own reactions, for my own thoughts. It's too much of a hustle for many people, so they choose to outsource. And this outsourcing becomes their demise, becomes their, road to hell, which is paved with good intentions, basically. So as long as we are victims in whichever way, on whichever level, even on the spiritual level, we perceive that someone else knows better than us, someone else is more powerful spiritually than us, someone else has more than we do not realize our essence. But to realize essence doesn't mean to become arrogant or to become falsely confident. It means to become humble, to become selfless, to become pure, and to understand that everything is propelled from within. All the gods and demons reside within consciousness, but that means that one has already realized one's wholesomeness on all levels. and does not only perceive self on the level of the body. If you perceive yourself only on the level of the body, your spirituality will be the spirituality of the body. If you perceive yourself on a level of the energy body, subtle body, and physical body, you will have the spirituality of the subtle body and the physical body. If you break through, you realize the wholesome spirituality, which cannot be even put into words, but it's just a wholesomeness that helps you to evolve beyond this human context. So our current spirituality is the spirituality of a human context, of human senses, of human limited empowerment and mostly disempowerment through the unresolved psychological problems, victimization, imbalanced emotions and mental constraints, limited human concepts, ideologies, and belief systems. So as long as this is there, you cannot even come across or resonate in any way with the true spirituality, because the seed has not been activated. Why? Because the soil is not fertile yet, because the vessel is impure, so it cannot be born. The true knowledge, the true spirituality cannot be born from within. And true spirituality is only born from within. It is not on the level of ideas. Now I'm going to be this and I'm going to be that. I'm going to worship this or that. No. It's a sense of completeness, wholesomeness, absolute contentment, natural being. This is the moment of awakening. But this moment of awakening does not guarantee that you are going to evolve, because this is either you are going to create a big deal out of this experience, or you're going to find direction which is proper, which is towards selflessness, and you're going to start refinement silently for yourself, without propagating yourself, creating movements, creating different kinds of ideologies and so on. So if you go into this simplicity, you will evolve further. If you go into complexity, which is, okay, now I have this experience, I have to tell everyone about this, I have to ask people to follow me because I don't have enough confidence in myself to just live silently and by myself. So, or cultivate my own life without tags and titles. So you say this will define your being. Now, if you look at what is happening right now and what kind of spirituality we're facing the spirituality of corruption, the corruption that is from within. That maybe the intention is there, we want to know, but the motive is not defined, because the motive has the seed of corruption, and this motive is power, making oneself feel like someone is something. But true spirituality does not crystallize your sense of limited self. It decrystallizes it, it dissolves it. And it dissolves it into selflessness, into a natural flow of being, where you don't need to appear as anything, tag yourself as anything, become as anything, or fool other people in the name of yourself being something, or in the name of this limited spirituality, because they are in need and also feel disempowered. You don't need to create a fortune or make a fortune on other people's weaknesses and corruption. But that's what's happening. That's why there's no true spirituality. It is so hidden and so rare that most of the people in this lifetime and the coming ones will never come across it. And if they come across it, they come across it only from within, because their vessel and their mind matured and starts vibrating purity and selflessness and simplicity.